The first time I noticed something weird, it was a Saturday morning. Melissa stood by the kitchen counter scrolling her phone while I made breakfast. "Tracy's husband made her breakfast in bed today," she said casually. I cracked an egg into the pan. "Good for Tracy. Did he also clean the sheets afterward?" She gave me one of those looks, the kind that says you think you're funny, but you're not. "You never do stuff like that anymore," she added. I turned the heat down and said, "You mean breakfast?" She rolled her eyes. "Not breakfast. Romantic things. Sweet things." I pointed at the pan. "This is both breakfast and sweet. Look, it even has bacon hearts." She smiled for half a second, then shook her head. "You're hopeless." Maybe I was. Or maybe she was just in a mood. At first, I didn't take it seriously. Melissa had a tight group of friends, Tracy, Liza, Kate, and Hannah, and they talked all the time. They had a group chat that never slept. If one of them sneezed, the others would send 10 messages about it. Sometimes she'd tell me little things about them, harmless gossip. But lately, it wasn't just gossip. It was comparisons. "Liza's husband sent her flowers to work," she'd say, while loading the dishwasher. "That's nice," I'd reply. "Yeah," she'd continue, "he's really thoughtful. She said it made her whole week." "Cool," I'd say, closing the dishwasher. "I'll buy you a cactus. It lasts longer." She didn't find that funny either. It became a theme. Every few days, another story, another example. "Tracy says her husband plans a date every Friday night. Isn't that sweet?" Ben surprised Kate with a weekend trip to the mountains. Daniel bought Hannah a bracelet for no reason. Each time I gave the same half smile and half answer. "Yeah, that's nice. Good for them. Maybe I'll learn from the masters." She never laughed anymore when I said that. A few weeks in, I started feeling like a contestant in a show I hadn't agreed to be on. Every little thing I did suddenly felt like a performance. If I washed the dishes, she'd say, "See? You can help out." If I forgot to text her back from work, she'd go quiet for hours. One night, I came home a bit late. She was already in bed, scrolling her phone. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Yeah," she said flatly. "You sure?" She sighed. Liza's husband texted her in the middle of the day just to say he missed her. I blinked. "Do you want me to text you right now? I can do that." She looked up and frowned. "You're missing the point." "Probably," I said. "I usually do." She rolled her eyes again. "Forget it. Good night." I lay down next to her, staring at the ceiling. It was quiet, but not the good kind of quiet, more like waiting room quiet. It got stranger. She started posting more on Instagram. Small things about our life that used to stay between us. A photo of dinner with the caption "He's learning," a picture of me fixing the sink, handy husband mode activated. The first time I saw it, I actually smiled. It looked innocent. But after the third post, I started to feel like a pet being trained. I joked about it once. "So, what's my next trick? Rolling over?" She laughed for half a second, then said, "Don't be so defensive." "Defensive?" I said. "I'm literally holding a wrench." "It's cute," she said, already looking back at her phone. I wasn't sure who she was trying to impress, her followers or herself. One Friday, she said we were invited to Hannah's birthday dinner. "Everyone will be there," she said, smiling. "It'll be fun." I wasn't so sure, but I went. The house smelled like candles and cheese boards. The women took the big couch, all holding wine glasses, laughing at something on someone's phone. The men stood near the kitchen island, drinking beer and pretending to look comfortable. "So," one of them asked, "how long have you been married?" 6 years, I said. "You?" 8. Feels like 15, he said with a grin. We laughed. It felt good to laugh with someone who got it. But then I heard Melissa's voice from the couch. She was saying, "Aaron's great. He's just not very expressive." The other women nodded. One of them said, "Oh, that's okay. They can learn." "Yeah," Melissa added. "He's getting there." Getting where? I smiled awkwardly at nothing, took another sip of my beer, and pretended not to hear the rest. On the way home, she was in a good mood. That was nice, she said. Yeah, I replied. Tracy's so funny. And Liza's husband was so sweet, helping her with her coat. You never do that. I looked at her. You usually grab your coat before I get the chance. She smiled faintly. See? Excuses. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. Okay, next time I'll wrestle you for it. She laughed but didn't look at me. Over the next few weeks, she was glued to her phone. At breakfast, on the couch, in bed, always typing, always smiling. If I asked what she was doing, she'd just say, group chat. One evening I asked, You talk to them every day? Pretty much, she said. It's like therapy, but with memes. What do you even talk about? She smiled. Relationships, goals, little things. It's nice. We hold each other accountable. Accountable for what? For growing, she said as if that explained everything. I nodded slowly. Cool. I didn't ask again. Then came the first red flag I couldn't ignore. Saturday afternoon, my 4-year-old nephew came over. He's a small ball of chaos, smart, loud, always sticky for no reason. While I was making him a sandwich, he ran off with Melissa's iPad. I didn't care much until I heard random notification sounds. Then I saw one. Wives League, weekly scores updated. I frowned. I thought it was a fitness app. Then another popped up. Tracy. Liza wins this week. Spa day for her hubby's effort. I froze mid-step. Spa day for her husband's effort? What kind of competition was that? I wiped my hands and walked over. My nephew was smashing buttons like a tiny hacker. Before I could stop him, the screen unlocked and a chat appeared. 5 names I recognized: Tracy, Liza, Hannah, Kate, and Melissa. Messages scrolled fast, full of emojis and comments. Tracy, +10 if he does laundry without being asked. Liza, Ben cleaned the car today. +20. Hannah, Daniel forgot our date night. 10. Melissa, Aaron cooked dinner again. 7 points maybe. Tracy, was it romantic or just food? Melissa, just food. Tracy, then +5. Effort counts, not habits. I blinked a few times. My name, points, categories. I scrolled a little more. Each wife had a scoreboard. At the top, weekly leaderboard. Liza, 95. Tracy, 88. Melissa, 62. 62? That was me. I didn't know whether to laugh or throw the iPad out the window. My nephew tugged on my sleeve. Truck. Yeah, I said quietly. Trucks. I closed the chat, opened a cartoon for him, and sat beside him, pretending to watch. Bright colors flashed on the screen, but all I could see were those numbers. Was it just a joke? Some dumb challenge? Or were they actually ranking their husbands like products on Amazon? That evening, Melissa came home from running errands. I was cleaning the kitchen, trying not to look guilty of something I hadn't even done. Hey, she said cheerfully, did my iPad die? Yeah, maybe, I said. My nephew was watching cartoons on it. She smiled. Hope he didn't break anything. No, I said, just a few brain cells. She laughed and went to shower. I watched her walk away, trying to decide if I should ask her about what I saw. I didn't. Later, she came out in pajamas, towel around her hair, smelling like vanilla soap. She sat on the couch next to me, scrolling her phone again. Everything okay? I asked. Yeah, she said. Just talking to the girls. Tracy and them? She nodded. Who else? I forced a smile. Cool, you guys talk a lot. She looked up for a second. That's what friends are for. Then she leaned over and kissed my cheek. Don't look so serious. I'm not, I said. Just thinking. About what? I shrugged. Nothing. Work stuff. She went back to her phone, typing fast. The blue light flickered across her face. I turned on the TV, but I couldn't focus. When we went to bed, she kept scrolling for a while before turning off the lamp. Good night, she said. Night, I replied. But I stayed awake, staring at the dark ceiling, thinking about that chat, about the numbers next to my name, about Tracy handing out points like a teacher, about Melissa writing just food. Just food. I wasn't even sure if I was angry yet. Mostly I was curious. What exactly were they doing? Was it a joke? Or was this what our marriage had turned into? Some kind of group project with grades? The next morning, she was cheerful again. She kissed me before leaving for work. "Bye, babe," she said. "You're sweet when you try." When I try. I stood in the doorway after she left, holding my coffee. I looked at the iPad on the table. It sat there, quiet and harmless, like it wasn't holding a full-on marriage scoreboard inside. Whatever this was, it wasn't just a group chat, but I wasn't ready to confront her yet. Not until I knew the whole story. So I cleaned up the kitchen, grabbed my jacket, and went to work, acting normal while 100 questions buzzed in my head. That night, when she was asleep, I sat in the dark living room. The iPad was still there. I picked it up, stared at the black screen, and whispered to myself, "I'm not crazy. Something's going on." I didn't open it again, not yet, but I knew I would, because whatever this Wives League was, I had a feeling it wasn't just about points. It was about control. And if they were keeping score, maybe it was time someone started paying attention to the rules. The next few days I tried to act normal, which apparently is harder than it sounds when you think your wife might be in a secret competition for best marriage. I didn't bring up the iPad. I didn't mention the messages or the points. I just watched. Melissa didn't notice anything. She was cheerful, chatty, and, of course, on her phone constantly. It was like the more she laughed at that screen, the quieter I became. Every few minutes there'd be that sound, the tiny ping of a new message. Sometimes she'd smile, sometimes she'd roll her eyes. Once, she giggled so hard she snorted. "What's funny?" I asked, keeping my tone casual. "Oh, nothing," she said. "Just something Tracy sent." Tracy. Again, it was always Tracy. I was starting to think that if our marriage ever ended, Tracy would be listed as co-defendant. On Tuesday night, we were watching a movie together, or at least I was. She was half watching, half texting. At one point, she said, "Tracy's husband booked a weekend in the mountains. Totally surprised her." I said, "That's nice." She waited, like I was supposed to say something more. When I didn't, she sighed. "See, that's the problem. You don't react." "React to what?" I asked. "To romance." I blinked. "Sorry, I thought we were watching John Wick." She threw a pillow at me. "God, you can be impossible sometimes." "Only sometimes?" I said. "That's progress." She smiled despite herself, and for a few seconds it felt like old times again. Then her phone buzzed, and she was gone, back into her little digital world. The next morning I came downstairs and saw her at the kitchen table, laughing into her phone. "Morning," I said. "Morning," she replied without looking up. "What's funny?" "Tracy sent a meme. You wouldn't get it." I poured myself coffee. "Try me." "It's just about husbands," she said, waving her hand. "Forget it." "Yeah," I muttered. "I'm starting to see the theme." She didn't even hear me. At work, I couldn't focus. My coworker Cal noticed. "Dude," he said, leaning over my desk, "you look like you're solving a murder." "Just tired," I said. He grinned. "Wife stuff?" I gave a small smile. "You have no idea." He laughed. "Say no more. I've been married 10 years. I already know." I wished he didn't. That night, Melissa came home late from yoga. She looked happy, relaxed, glowing even. "How was yoga?" I asked. "Good. We stayed after to talk." "Talk about what?" "Just life, relationships, girl stuff." I nodded. "Tracy there?" "Of course," she said with a laugh. "She runs half the class." "Of course she does." Later that evening, while she was in the shower, I noticed her phone buzzing on the nightstand. It was lit up with notifications from that same group, Wives League, 7 new messages. I didn't touch it. Didn't need to. The image from the iPad was still fresh in my head. The emojis, the comments, my name with a number next to it. But part of me was curious. How deep did this thing go? "Everything okay?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. Just tired. She smiled, kissed my cheek, and went back to her phone. She was smiling again in seconds. Whatever they were talking about, it clearly made her happier than I did. The next day, I decided to test something. I wanted to see if what I did actually changed anything. So I went out of my way to be perfect. I made her coffee in the morning. I sent her a text at lunch saying, "Hope your day's good." I cooked dinner. I even bought flowers on the way home. Tulips, her favorite. When she came in, she looked genuinely surprised. "Oh my God," she said, "what's all this?" "Just thought I'd do something nice," I said, trying not to sound sarcastic. She smiled. "You're so sweet." For a moment, I felt like maybe everything was fine, until I saw her pick up her phone. She took a picture of the flowers. "Hold still," she said. "What?" "Just want to show the girls, this is so cute." My stomach sank. I forced a smile. "Of course, wouldn't want to miss the report." She laughed, thinking I was joking, but I wasn't. The next morning, I made coffee for both of us again. When she came down, she looked at the cup like it was a surprise. "You're really on a roll this week," she said. "Guess I'm catching up," I replied. She smiled, kissed me on the cheek, and walked out the door. I watched her leave and thought, she's definitely going to text that to Tracy. That evening, when she went upstairs to shower, I finally did it. I took her iPad, sat on the couch, and opened that same chat. Wives League. There it was, the entire game. Dozens of messages, gifs, little hearts, screenshots of husbands doing chores. Every man reduced to a line in a digital scoreboard. I scrolled slowly. "Tracy. All right, ladies, time for weekly check-in. Remember, +10 for acts of service, +115 for surprise gifts, +5 for emotional support. Liza. Ben took the kids to the park so I could nap. +25. Hannah. Daniel finally fixed the garage door. +110, after 3 weeks of asking. Melissa. Aaron brought me flowers and coffee. +20 maybe? Tracy. Was it romantic or just routine? Melissa. Romantic. He even smiled. Tracy. Then +25, Queen. He's learning. My mouth tightened. Learning. Like a dog with a treat. I kept scrolling. Old messages. More lists. One from a few weeks ago. Tracy. Melissa's doing great. Consistency is key. You'll get him trained in no time. Liza. Mine still forgets to say goodnight when he's mad. 5. Hannah. Same. They all shut down instead of communicating. Tracy. That's why we have this group. We hold them accountable. Accountable. That word again. I sat back, staring at the screen. This wasn't just fun. It was a damn husband leaderboard. And I was sitting at 60-something points out of 100, according to women who thought marriage worked like a loyalty program. When Melissa came downstairs in her robe, I quickly locked the screen and set the iPad aside. Hey, she said. What are you doing? Nothing, I said. Just scrolling news. She smiled. You and your boring news. Yep, I said. Never gets old. That night, I lay in bed thinking about everything I'd read, about how Tracy ran the whole operation, about how Melissa sounded different in that chat, colder, almost performing for approval. She wasn't the woman who used to curl up on my shoulder and tell me about her day. Now she was part of a club that ranked me like a contestant. But I didn't get angry. Not yet. Instead, I decided to learn. If they wanted a game, I'd read the rulebook first. Over the next few days, I watched her patterns. Every Friday, her mood changed. Lighter, almost excited. That's when weekly check-ins must have happened. Saturday mornings, she'd show me something new Tracy's husband did. Sunday afternoons, she'd get quiet and distant. I realized she wasn't living in our marriage. She was living in a scoreboard version of it. One night after she fell asleep, I grabbed her iPad again. I wasn't trying to be sneaky. I just needed to know the truth. I scrolled through older weeks. The deeper I went, the worse it got. Comments like, men respond better to competition. Keep track of progress. Don't reward laziness. Be patient. Consistency creates better habits. Better habits? Was I a husband or a house-trained pet? Then I saw it, a message from Melissa that stung more than all the rest. Melissa: sometimes I wonder if Aaron even notices me anymore. Tracy: he does. He's just lazy. You gotta push him. Liza: try withholding attention for a bit. They start to chase it back. Melissa: already doing that. He's sweet, just not exciting. Not exciting, cool, good to know. I closed the iPad, set it down gently, and stared at the ceiling. No anger, just disappointment. It's a weird kind of pain when someone turns your relationship into a group experiment without asking you. The next morning, I acted completely normal. Made her coffee, asked about her day, kissed her goodbye. She smiled, looking proud, like her training program was working. See, she said, you're really getting better at this. At what? She laughed. At being thoughtful. I smiled. Guess I'm a quick learner. That day, I knew what I had to do. No yelling, no drama. If Melissa and her friends liked accountability, I'd give them some. But before that, I needed more information. So that evening, when she went to bed early, I went to the living room again, opened her iPad, scrolled, found their latest leaderboard. This time, I took screenshots, names, dates, comments, all of it. Then I made a list of their husbands: Mark, Chris, Daniel, Ben, and me, Aaron. 5 guys who had no idea they were part of this circus. I looked at the list, smiled to myself, and whispered, let's even the score. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was angry, but because I couldn't stop thinking. The chat, the messages, the points, the tone of it all. It wasn't just silly, it was systematic. 5 women sitting behind their screens, treating marriage like some loyalty program. +10 if he listens, 5 if he forgets. Winner gets a spa day. It was stupid, sure, but also cruel in a quiet way. Melissa wasn't the same woman who used to laugh with me over bad takeout. Now she was performing, competing. And for what? A couple of compliments from Tracy? I sat in the dark watching the glow of the iPad. I had screenshots of everything now. Proof. Names, messages, timestamps. The digital anatomy of disappointment. The next morning, Melissa was cheerful. Too cheerful. She hummed while making coffee, danced a little in her slippers, texted while her toast burned. She looked up and smiled. You're quiet this morning. Just tired, I said. Didn't sleep much. Maybe you should try meditating, she said. Tracy says it helps her focus. Yeah, I muttered. Tracy has a lot of wisdom to share, doesn't she? She didn't catch the tone. She really does. She's just very balanced. I watched her take a picture of her coffee cup. Literally, just a cup of coffee, and posted to her story with a caption, "Simple mornings." Then she set down her phone, grabbed her keys, and kissed my cheek. See you tonight? Sure, I said. Have fun at work. She walked out the door smiling. Meanwhile, I stood there thinking about how fake that smile felt now. At work, I couldn't focus. The whole thing played on repeat in my head. The way Tracy typed like she was the queen of marriage advice. The way Melissa laughed at her comments. The way I was reduced to numbers and bullet points. By lunch, I'd made up my mind. If they were going to play games, I'd write the final rule. That night, Melissa came home from yoga. She was glowing, relaxed, hair tied up, phone in her hand. Good class? I asked. The best, she said. We stayed after to talk. Tracy had the funniest story. I raised an eyebrow. Tracy again? She smiled. She's just the kind of person who inspires people. I gave a small nod. Yeah, you could say that. She put down her phone and opened the fridge. You want wine? Sure. We drank in silence. She scrolled. I watched the clock. I opened my laptop later that night, created a new email. husbandsleagueoprotonmail.com. If they wanted to play social media games, I could play the quiet kind. I wrote one message, then copied it 4 times. Subject, you're being rated. Hi, I thought you should know your wife is part of a private group called Wives League. They rank their husbands weekly based on behavior, chores, affection, gifts, and romantic effort. They share screenshots, messages, and personal details. This isn't a prank or spam. Attached is a screenshot from their chat. You can decide what to do with it. Someone who got tired of being scored. I sent them one by one. Mark, Tracy's husband. Chris, Liza's husband. Daniel, Hannah's husband. Ben, Kate's husband. Then I sat back and stared at the screen. It felt quiet in a good way for the first time in weeks. 2 days passed before the storm hit. Melissa came home early from work, pale and tense. She threw her bag down and just stood in the kitchen, gripping her phone. "What's wrong?" I asked. She hesitated. "Something's happening. It's bad." "What is it?" "The girls. Someone leaked our chat." I frowned, keeping my tone neutral. "Leaked?" "Yeah, like screenshots. To the husbands." "Wow," I said slowly. "That's serious." "Serious? It's a disaster," she said, running her hand through her hair. "Tracy's husband is furious. He yelled at her in front of everyone at the gym. Liza's husband isn't answering her calls. Hannah's crying. Everyone's losing it." I nodded slowly. "That's rough." She turned to me, eyes wide. "Don't you care?" "I care," I said calmly. "I just think it's interesting." "Interesting?" she said, her voice rising. "This is a total betrayal." "Yeah," I said, meeting her eyes. "It is." She froze. For a second, she just stared at me. Then she whispered, "You." I didn't answer. "You did this," she said. "Did what?" "You sent those emails." I looked at her quietly. "You mean the ones with the truth?" She went silent for a moment. Then her voice cracked. "How could you do that to me?" "To you?" I said. "Melissa, you and your friends spent months treating your marriages like a point system. You mocked private moments. You graded love." "It was harmless," she said. "Just something fun." "Fun?" I asked. "Is that what you call it when you talk about how trainable your husband is? When you screenshot his messages for laughs?" She stepped back, shaking her head. "You don't understand. It was a joke." "No," I said quietly. "It was control." She didn't answer. Her breathing was shaky. Finally, she whispered, "You humiliated me." I shrugged. "You humiliated yourself." I just hit send. The next day, she barely spoke to me. Her phone buzzed constantly. Sometimes she'd pick it up, read, then toss it back onto the couch like it burned her. At one point, she muttered, "Tracy's husband packed a bag." "Oh," I said. "Guess he's taking a spa day." She glared. "That's not funny." I wasn't trying to be. By Friday, the fallout was complete. Tracy deleted her social media entirely. Liza posted a long apology on Facebook that made everything worse. Hannah stopped responding to anyone. Kate just texted Melissa once. "Told you this was going to blow up." The group chat was gone, deleted, but the damage was already done. Melissa walked around the house in silence. She avoided eye contact. When I tried to talk, she just said, "I don't know who you are anymore." I looked at her and said, "You probably never tried to find out. Tracy told you who I was." That night, I found her sitting on the edge of the bed staring at her phone. I sat beside her quietly. After a minute, she said, "I didn't mean for it to go that far." "I know," I said, "but it did. It wasn't supposed to hurt anyone. It's always not supposed to until it does." She looked up at me, eyes wet but angry. "You think you're better than all of us now?" I sighed. "No, I just think I stopped pretending." We sat in silence for a long time. Then she said, "So what happens now?" I stood up, took my jacket from the chair, and said, "Now? Nothing. I'm done playing." The next morning, before leaving for work, I left a note on the table beside her coffee mug. Final score. You win the game, but lose the player. When I came home that evening, the note was gone. So was she. The house was quiet. No phone buzzing, no giggling in the other room, just silence. The real kind this time. I poured myself a cup of coffee, sat by the window, and finally felt something close to peace. They called it Wives' League. But in the end, it wasn't about wives or husbands. It was about people forgetting that love isn't supposed to be earned in points. Somewhere between the selfies, the jokes, and the leaderboards, they lost that truth. And when I stopped trying to win, I finally stopped losing. 3 weeks. That's how long it took for everything to settle down, or maybe just fall apart quietly. The first week was chaos. The second week was silence. By the third, it felt like everyone had aged a few years. Melissa moved out 2 days after I left the note. She didn't slam the door or make a scene. When I came home that night, her shoes were gone from the hallway, her side of the closet was empty, and the faint smell of her vanilla perfume still lingered in the air. On the kitchen counter, there was a folded piece of paper. It said, "I don't know how we got here. I wish things had gone differently." No apology. No anger either. Just that one line, like she was writing from a distance. I folded the note, put it in a drawer, and never opened it again. A week later, her sister texted me, "Melissa's staying with me for now. She needs space." I replied, "She's got all the space she wants." No one answered after that. Life after she left felt strange at first. The house was too quiet. No footsteps upstairs, no hairdryer humming, no late-night glow from her phone lighting up the bedroom. The first morning alone, I made 2 cups of coffee out of habit. Then I poured one down the sink and laughed quietly. By the third morning, I only made 1. The Wives' League fallout spread fast. Tracy's husband, Mark, filed for divorce. He apparently printed out the entire chat, color-coded and all, and handed it to her during dinner. She moved in with her sister, deleted her social media, and started posting vague quotes about rebuilding a few weeks later. Liza's picture-perfect marriage cracked too. Her husband, Chris, didn't yell or leave. He just stopped trying. He told a mutual friend, "I don't compete for affection. I either have it or I don't." Last I heard, they're still living together, but sleeping in separate rooms. Hannah's husband, Daniel, forgave her. He's that kind of guy. Calm, kind, maybe too patient. But something between them changed. She doesn't laugh like she used to in pictures. Kate was the only one who came out clean. She told her husband about the group herself before the emails even spread. Apparently, she'd warned them this was a bad idea months ago. Her only message to Melissa afterward was short. "Next time someone tells you it's harmless, ask who it helps." As for Melissa, she didn't fight the separation. No calls, no begging, no dramatic speeches. Just silence. Her friend circle dissolved, her phone went quiet, and from what I've heard, she stopped going to that yoga studio altogether. About a month later, I got an envelope from her lawyer. Simple, cold, efficient. Petition for divorce, irreconcilable differences. No surprise, no anger either. I signed it, mailed it back, and that was that. After that, I started sleeping better. I fixed the squeaky cabinet again, this time without thinking about points. I bought a new coffee machine because the old one reminded me of her. I even rearranged the living room. Small changes, but they felt like reclaiming something. Cal, my coworker, invited me out for beers one Friday. He asked how I was holding up. I said, "Honestly, I feel like someone turned the noise off." He nodded. "That's either peace or loneliness." "Maybe both," I said. "I'll take it." Sometimes people ask if I'd ever take her back. I don't answer right away. The truth is, Melissa wasn't evil. She wasn't cruel. She just forgot what love is supposed to feel like. When you start keeping score, you stop playing together. And once that happens, it's not marriage anymore. It's management. I think she realized that too, just too late to fix it. One Sunday morning, I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. It was from Melissa. Short, honest. "I know you'll never forgive me completely, and I don't blame you. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. Not for the leak, but for forgetting how to love you without conditions. You didn't deserve that. I hope you're doing better." I stared at it for a while. Then I wrote back, "I'm doing fine. I hope you learn to stop grading people and start seeing them again. Take care." I hit send and never heard from her again. Now, a few months later, life is calm. No more point systems. No more background laughter from a chat I'm not part of. Just quiet mornings, black coffee, and the kind of peace that feels earned. Sometimes I think about her. Not with anger, not with longing, just with that strange mix of familiarity and distance. Like remembering a book you once liked but will never reread. If you ask me what I learned from all this, I'd say, you can't build love out of checklists. You can't measure effort in points. And the moment one person starts keeping score, both already lost. If you felt this story hit hard, drop a like, subscribe for more, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support keeps Steelheart beating.